Evening. Tonight we go after a fantastic story. The story that...
Hi guys, welcome to today's podcast. We have been gone for a hot minute. As some of our listeners may know, we have some reasoning behind that, and that is because Catelyn is preggers. Yes, she is knocked up, y'all. And she's been really sick, so she hasn't been able to, we haven't been able to do this. So this is the first time in a long time that we've been able to actually sit down and record some stuff. We've tried a few times. It just has not worked out. We promise we weren't trying.
Unless you guys want to watch me just throw up on camera all the time. I mean, we could do that, but
we could.
I thought you wouldn't like it.
Ew. Yuck. No. But we have a pretty massive topic today, and it's going to be kind of heavy on the more serious side. You know, this is not just conspiracies, it's more on the news side, and we feel like it's important enough that we really need to cover it. And if you listen to our last newscast, you might have some knowledge of what today's topic is about, because back then it was just starting. Like we had just gotten news of it, but now it is formed into a major situation, and that is the whole war that's about to happen with Ukraine and Russia, and us all together. And it's pretty serious. So we wanted to kind of talk about that today, because we feel like it is really important to just kind of lay it all out there for you guys. You know, we'll be talking about some prepping stuff, just in case you're like us. We're doomsday preppers here. That's what we do. Okay. We've got bug out bags and all kinds of things just in case something were to happen. So we wanted to talk about that a little bit too, but we are mainly going to be focusing on what is going on over there. So you have some stuff to talk about, because Catelyn, as you may know, likes to bring the news articles and give you the truth up front, rather than just us telling you about what we think is going to happen. So we think that's pretty important to kind of explain what's going on to help you understand, because you may not have been following it as closely as we have. I would assume that a lot of people have not been following it as closely as we have.
Yeah. So I think that it's very important, because it is such a complex situation with a lot of moving parts, and it's just a very fluid situation, to cover the basics and give you a little bit of background and knowledge on all those things. So there are certain places that are heavily discussed, which are obviously Ukraine, Russia, US, Kiev, Crimea, Belarus, Donbas. Then you have NATO organization, you have USSR. So when you hear us talking about those things, I kind of want to give a quick little rundown. NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's got 30 members currently, which includes some major European players, as well as the US. So you have France, Germany, the UK, Poland, Canada, Greece, etc. So there's 30 members currently. It was a defensive alliance that was created in the 40s. There's a lot of argument as to what exact purpose NATO serves. They remain to kind of say it is a defensive alliance. So basically, when the USSR was still together, that was a huge kind of potential threat to other European countries. So they formed this alliance, and it's defensive. So you're never going to see NATO go in and attack somewhere, but they are going to defend places. So
they help you.
One thing that I want to put out there is Ukraine is not currently a member of NATO. There are certain criteria that you have to meet to be able to join. They have it on the table that Ukraine could eventually join, but they are not a current member of NATO, which is important to remember in all of the situation. So I think another really important thing to make note of is the USSR, or Soviet Union. A lot of people have heard of it. It was a powerful and large group of republics that lasted from 1988 to 1991. Russia obviously was involved in this, which is why you still hear it a lot today, because a lot of people believe Putin would like to kind of recreate the USSR because it was such a powerhouse. So without going into too much detail of how or why it collapsed, to a lot of people, their empire basically had fallen. So a lot of people think Putin kind of has the same ideology of that, where it's, I mean, if the US collapsed, you know, and we were 30 years later, there's going to be a lot of people that want to like revive that idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though it's obviously not comparable, it's the same idea there, that there are people that are still loyal to like the Soviet Union. So they want that. USSR 2.0 is what a lot of people dub it. So that being said, there you can only kind of guess what Putin really wants, but a lot of people do speculate that that's one of the main things that he's going for. Jump forward a couple years. One thing that's often getting confused is people talk about if Ukraine gets invaded. Ukraine has already been invaded. It started in 2014. Okay, Russia moved in and they successfully annexed Crimea from Ukraine. So there's like a peninsula that basically there are certain areas in Ukraine that were still Russian speaking. They like the Russian ideology, whereas a larger portion of Ukraine wanted more of a democracy. So there's kind of a just civil unrest, I guess, between the two groups. So this invasion has already started. This is continuing because Putin wants to get all of Ukraine. He has said in multiple interviews he does not consider Ukraine a country. He says it's a little brother, it's a little part of Russia. But majority of people over in Ukraine do not agree with that. So Russia or Putin thinks Ukraine is his to take. It's already basically a part, so it's not a big deal. It's basically his territory, so he thinks that he can just kind of go in and do that, like what happened in 2014. So that leads us to kind of where we are today. So the last thing that I want to touch on is like geography wise. Kiev is the capital in Ukraine. So you hear that brought up a lot. Russia is obviously bordering Ukraine in a small portion. And then Ukraine is surrounded by Belarus, Poland, Moldova, Romania, just for context, so you can kind of get an idea of like where everybody is on the map. So Russia is large and Ukraine borders up against a small section of it.
It's pretty small.
On that small section is where they've been amassing the troops for a couple months, building them up. And anyways, so there's a little bit of like the backstory on everything that's led up to here. So the current conflict basically comes down to Putin and what he wants, or what people can speculate he wants. And
there's
the top things of that are
there's a lot of speculation on what exactly he wants, because it's not necessarily being told to us, like all of it. We're being told it's due to democracy issues, but there's probably more to it.
So, and some of the base ideas are Putin wants the USSR back together, and if Ukraine joins NATO, which is not going to happen anytime in the near future, they weren't trying to work that out. But they want to make sure that Ukraine can never join NATO. Because he wants the USSR back together in a sense. He thinks that it already kind of belongs to him. He wants the land. And then another point is that if Ukraine does form a working democracy, that is a threat, because Russia does not share Western ideology. And when you start to form a democracy, you have some of the same things. Putin thinks that he sees this as weak currently. I mean, he always kind of has, but especially now, for obvious reasons. I'm not going to go into that too much. But he does see us as weak. Everything that happened in Afghanistan kind of like set the pace for that. Amongst other things, he sees the divide. A lot of the divide in the US is from Russian propaganda. We know that there are bots, there are people, they hate us. So they want to see the divide. That makes us weak. So that leads it to basically, he thinks that the West is a dying idea and he would like to see us disappear.
He has a very old school way very barbaric, old school mentality that is, it's just not, it's not cool, honestly.
And that's the main thing about this is NATO is trying to take a stand and say, this isn't what we do anymore. You don't just decide where borders are. You don't just get to come in and take down a border and invade into other countries that want to be a democracy. So that threatens Putin. And then lastly, and it depends which way you look at this, because there's a lot of argument on, is Russia justified? Again, we try to be as unbiased as possible. Here's the other aspect of it is, does Russia want a possible NATO ally on their border with nukes, with missiles, with weapons? So that brings in, those are Putin's main reasons. I mean, that anybody could guess. I mean, who really can guess his reasoning, but can guess why he wants to, proceed with this invasion. And then on the flip side, you have NATO that is saying we are a defensive alliance. Russia cannot just put troops up there, even though it's their own, it's their land, yes. But come on, let's read in between the lines. Are they just putting their troops there for fun? Like, we can all see Russia has a history. Russia's already done this. They're still doing this. Like, okay,
they like to do false flags a lot and propaganda, but this is my point that I've been trying to make to everybody who keeps just saying, oh, they're just all talk, they're no action, is, I mean, think about Boy Cried Wolf, that story that you've been told all your childhood, all of us have been. Eventually, he's going to have to make a move, and otherwise he loses his credibility. He loses that fear aspect. You just never know.
The US as well right now.
There is this like all talk, no action kind of stuff that's been going on for many, many years. I'm talking a long time. So it's only a matter of time before he makes that move, and he's like, whatever, I'm just going to do it because I have to now, because I'm only getting older. He is 69 years old, correct? I think, I'm pretty sure he's 69 years old.
I don't know how old he is.
I think so he's not getting any younger, and he has to make a move. And it's at this point that we really, really, really want to stress to you guys that it's at this point now where war is like imminent. It's going to happen. It has to happen. There has to be a move that is going to be made. And that has been confirmed many times from different, sources and things like that it's imminent. It's been imminent, but it's just now getting to that point where something is going to happen. And we do want to explain all that kind of stuff too. We don't want to scare you. And this is it's not our point to be fear mongers or alarmists or something like that. It's to this point where we feel it's severe enough to where you really should be in the know, because if you're relying on your mainstream media, your television to tell you that something's going on, I honestly wouldn't really pay attention to those little guys that kind of let you know on Twitter and stuff like that. There's a lot of sources, honestly, that you don't have to just rely on CNN. And
so circling back, basically right now we are at a stalemate with Russia. NATO is saying, what you're doing, massing troops up on the border is wrong. You're obviously going to invade. You're not threatened by Ukraine. Like, we can see what you're doing. Also, they're saying basically NATO says Russia cannot dictate who we allow into NATO. That undermines what NATO is. So Russia wants in writing a guarantee that Ukraine can never join NATO. And NATO says that goes against the very thing that we're founded upon. So we will not be doing that. Now, it's up for debate if Russia is actually trying to get stuff in writing for diplomacy matters, or if they are just buying time. Historically, when Putin has invaded, it's been around the Olympics, either before or after. And what's coming up? The Olympics. The speculation on this is because he doesn't want to upstage China. Since all of us know Russia and China are arguably in cahoots with their ideology and view on the world, basically. not Western ideas, Western influences over there.
Yeah.
So that brings us to where we are basically, is we are at a standoff. And in the meantime, both sides are trying to prepare. Russia is supposed to be doing some joint drills in Belarus, and the US and the UK. Who else? I think Poland. Those are some of the main players that are actually kind of like, setting up our own troops and or sending troops over there. That's for debate right now with the US if Biden is going to be sending troops over. But we've definitely sent over a ton of equipment. Meanwhile, like, to me, one of the biggest takeaways here is the fact that Germany and France are kind of reluctant, and they're not really sure where they kind of stand on things. Like, they're saying they're with NATO, but they're also like, this will affect us like gravely if we don't take Russia's side. So you have some hesitancy there, which I think makes Putin happy to see. I mean, he'd be happy to see NATO, absolved. Not that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But there are more issues now amongst NATO than there were before in regards to how they're going to handle the Russia thing. And I think that shows a sign of weakness and that we're not united. And that's what Putin wants. He wants to jump at any sign of that he sees. So for the German, I think it was a Navy chief step down, it shows, like that we're not completely unified. And when Biden said on, national television that he wasn't sure how Rue's going to respond and stuff, it's those little things in this game of war that give them the green light. Like when Biden said, it depends if it's a small incursion, that kind of gave them okay, so we can do a little invasion. Like, we're literally looking down the barrel of war right now. And those little things are exactly what Putin's looking for, to he wants other places to fall apart on their own, or self-sabotage is one thing that I've noticed. That's why he does things like, we had to sanction 4 officials. Basically, some Russians were like spies into Ukraine's government, and they were planning to kind of pull it down. And there's all these false flags that are going on where they're going to take over the government in Ukraine. And it's like, he's sneaky like that. Like, Putin is sneaky like that. Propaganda, his little cyber attacks, that's the way he likes to play. Like they say, Putin has a playbook. We see what he does. So all these things are leading up to give the reasons why me and Chelsi are discussing this and saying, this isn't a dramatized thing right now. There's definitely going to be war. We just don't know how extreme it will be, how many borders it will cross. And I don't think we'll know that until
it gets there.
I want to say next week.
Yeah.
I mean, that
by
may
February.
be it. That might be it. Yeah.
We've been saying by February for a while. So.
Right. I mean, it's just, I don't know, like it's hard to say right now, but Biden is supposed to be meeting today at 3 p.m. with the French president, German chancellor, Italian prime minister, Polish president, NATO secretary, UK prime minister, and a few others. So to me, that sounds like putting together a plan of, are we going to put troops over there? Like, what are we doing? Like, both sides are waiting for the other side to strike.
Yeah, it's
so
a
they
matter
are justified in how they respond.
Who's going to start it? That's what we're waiting for here. Like, as of today, it's gotten to that point where it's okay, who's going to start? Like, who's going to throw the first shot? You know what I mean?
So we have a lot of reason to believe that war is imminent. There's a lot of possibilities. And once war starts, there's no knowing how it's going to go. Like, I've listened to a lot of like military strategists and vets, and they all kind of say anything's on the table at that point. So you've got on one hand, the potential of this to turn into a world war. And we'll get into why that is a possibility. You have the potential for it to turn into a nuclear war. You have the potential for it just to stay in Ukraine. The only possibility I do not see at this point is for this to de-escalate. Like, this is happening. This is going. Even if there was no, it's like in football when they try to trigger you to go off sides. That's what's happening right now. I feel like even if neither one of them, like the main, like NATO or Russia, which NATO in the most part is the US, because if you look at NATO and superpowers of the world, like Russia has the most nukes. The US has the second most nukes. I don't know exactly how many it is. You have the list.
Okay, so Russia has, and these are estimates. Just keep that in mind. as of 2021, Russia has 6,255 nuclear weapons, and the United States of America has 5,550 nuclear warheads. So it's very close, but it's still.
Well, look next on that list. Look down on that list.
What?
Who comes in third place?
China.
Who comes in third?
China.
How many do they have?
350.
So, but think about the jump of amount from in the 5,000, 6,000 all the way down to a couple hundred. That is absolutely insane when you think about it.
Yeah.
And that was the point that I was making with NATO is we have, Japan said they're going to be an ally. And they said they would back us with whatever we decide to do. Then you have NATO allies. Then you have the UN who's dabbling, the EU, all these places. And then you have a lot of places that are neutral. Yeah. Let's flip it over and we look at Russia's side of this. Who is Russia been in company with lately? Russia met with Iran. We are trying to keep nukes from Iran, and Russia's meeting with Iran, and Iran thinks, hey, we could team up together.
Yeah.
Russia, Iran, and China. Now they've already done these drills. They've done these drills 2 other times, but Russia, Iran, and China are doing joint drills together as well.
Yep.
So this is why I say
this
the
is why it's
potential for it
bad
to turn into a world war situation is there because, we've invaded other countries. Other countries have invaded other countries. We've intervened, like whatever. Have you ever seen like a scenario where like these countries are meeting back to back, pledging to stand with other countries? Like they're preparing for something. You've got North Korea right now kind of backing away from treaties and pacts that they made about testing their nukes. Their missiles are going off near South Korea. So here's the big thing to me with NATO is trying to say, if we just step out and we let Russia go in and take Ukraine, this stands for the rest of the world. China, you can go into Taiwan. North Korea, you can go into South Korea. Middle Eastern countries, everywhere else, you can kind of just invade and do what you want, and there will be nobody to hold you accountable. And that's one of the points that I think people are missing because a lot of people are understating it. And yes, I kind of believe Ukraine, in a sense, maybe a scapegoat for something bigger. Both the US and Russia have said an agreement. Actually, I mean, a lot of places have said an agreement. This is much bigger than just Ukraine. Not that Ukraine isn't substantial in and of itself, because it's a large group of people that want to be free. But they are a beacon, they are a symbol right now for globally, what we need to stand for to defend people that want that Western ideology. So that's the big argument there for why are we going to send our troops over there? Yeah. Why are we going to defend Ukraine when they're not really even a member of NATO?
A lot of people are like, we don't want to, like, don't start anything over in Ukraine. Just leave US to US. Like, why do we have to get
involved? That's what we thought in the beginning.
Yeah, we were thinking the same thing. We're like, why? It's like, why risk so much against Russia of all people? But I mean, the more you look into it, the more you realize we really need to stand up. But that is completely our opinion. You can form your own opinion on that. We try to remain as unbiased as we can, like we've mentioned.
Right. And that's why I would say, I feel like that for NATO to stay true to what NATO is, they do need to stand up. If I get drafted, am I going to be trying to say, hey, I'm willing to risk my life for this? That's a totally different question. It's a totally different ballgame. And I think there's going to be a lot of families, if like they do deploy US troops over there, which it looks like is going to be happening, very shortly. I think a lot of people are going to be asking that question of why. And I think if you look at the bigger picture, at least from what we're told, or what we're trying to put together, because I don't know. So let's go a little bit, deep down, and it makes you wonder, what is there more to this? What is actually going on? Like a lot of people do tend to believe that we shouldn't be getting involved because, the West gets involved in like what happened with Afghanistan. Like the West, they say, can ruin countries or whatever. But that being said, is there something even bigger going on here that we have no clue about? Probably. War makes money. Is there oil, gas, all that involved? Yes. Is there an even bigger picture? yes, we don't know
Yeah.
everything, but going off of like the facts that we have, I do think that NATO does have an obligation to defend Ukraine right now.
Yeah. And we said that we would help. And we've been standing by that for a long time now, like a few months now. So we're standing by. We're not backing down. There's no backing down from this. Something's going to happen out of this. Like
Yeah.
we've mentioned, we don't know how big that's going to be, but that's why we're here talking about it, because we feel like it's really important to let you guys know all the possibilities that could happen and how you can prepare for that, because there are lots of talk about cyber attacks, and that was just released today, right? By mainstream media. I think, was that today? I'm pretty sure that was today.
I think a couple of days ago, CISA and the White House released some reports discussing like the possibility or threat. And I think today, who picked up on it? New York Times?
So it was CNN that released that article. I could just go ahead and give a little brief rundown of what that was. So CNN reported today that Russia would consider conducting a cyber attack on the U.S. homeland if Moscow perceived that a U.S. or NATO response to a potential Russian invasion of Ukraine threatened Russia's long-term national security. So if we threaten them, they're basically threatening us that a cyber attack could potentially happen here. Now, that could be a false flag. It could be just a scare tactic kind of a thing.
Propaganda, right?
Yeah, it could be that. We want to keep in mind that Russia does a lot of propaganda and a lot of false flags. So always keep that in mind. But what kind of effect would that have on the homeland? It would be pretty bad. Think about what we use the internet for. Anything from hospitals to communications. Like, you're going to have none of that. If this is to happen, it's going to be really scary. I mean, I would rather have this than a nuclear attack happening. I would rather have this than Red Dawn happening here. If you have not seen that movie, you should probably watch it, by the way. It's a very good movie. Very scary though.
Probably the original, right? The original.
Yeah. Oh, the original. Yes.
Not the one with Chris Hemsworth.
No, I mean,
unfortunately.
I mean, you could watch that one.
That one. It's just not. It's not as good. It's not as good.
No. But the old ones are always the best ones, anyways. But it'll scare you, especially in regards to what's going on right now. But back to this cyber attack that could happen.
Yes.
I mean, it could do a lot of damage.
I mean, that completely, I mean, that interrupts everything from, like you said, hospitals, the stock market,
which is crashing.
Infrastructure, logistics. Yeah. The stock market. That's a whole separate issue.
That's a whole thing
too. That is,
but it's bad.
I mean, you look at the signs, you see supply issues, you see the market crashing, you see what the mainstream media is pushing and isn't. So I, like you said, cyber attack, blackout versus nukes. Of course, we would rather take the cyber attack. Yeah. But the reason why, nukes, they're on the table. There's a word that in one of Russia's nuclear tactical facilities that they have been pulling missiles from it. Yeah. This is unconfirmed. A lot of this stuff comes out and then ends up being confirmed later by like people on the ground who are sharing this information via the internet. So that's what we're getting our information from, is from these little guys that probably shouldn't be sharing this information, but is. And then later on, it always gets confirmed. And we're like, why does it have to get confirmed? Please be wrong at least one time. Like, please. Crazy. Well, I think most of the stuff we brought up today, though, is from like legitimate news sources and everything. Like, I don't think we've gotten too much into, I thought we were going to do a little more talking about like speculatory things, but it kind of seems like there really is not much more speculation at this point. Yeah, like it used to be, are they going to proceed with it? And now it's like, what you just said about,
we're just waiting for it.
At this point, we're just
sitting ducks.
Like sitting ducks.
we said it at the same time.
But no, but I mean, that's what it is. And, the thing that I found the most astonishing is how little the mainstream media or local news. Today, my local news station is the first thing I saw them report, and they said that the U.S. is going to be recommending evacuations over in the embassies.
But this is
and,
like
Kiev
old
and stuff.
news. Like we've known about this
4 or 5 days,
Yeah,
right? So it's like, why are they
ridiculous.
taking so long to like sift through and
Yeah.
trickle down when? But also, I mean, how many average U.S. citizens right now have any idea what's going on?
I know this is why we feel
Right.
very compelled to get this out there as soon as possible.
Right.
Like it's
Well, because it seems like it's such a complex thing that the regular person might feel like, I have no way of understanding this. You know, also I feel like corruption and just division is at an all-time high. So people are less likely to take in information, or more likely to take in information, but you know, depending on which side you're on. And then it's just, I don't know, like people don't trust anything anymore. So it's like they hear, oh, Russia and Ukraine, and people aren't thinking, you know, they've already said, they haven't flat out said like the US and Russia are going to war, but just the mere thought of Ukraine and Russia going to war, they've said this has global implications, because it affects everything all the way down to the US dollar, you know, gas, oil, all that stuff, all of it's going to be affected. Trade. I think Ukraine is one of the biggest exporters of grain, or I think it's some sorts of grains.
It's something.
So like we already have issues with the supply chain. There's just, I don't know. And then if you piss off another country just by your stance, how many countries are going to sanction other countries and be like, you know what, you're not gonna be able to get this from us anymore. And then that raises the prices. Like our global trade is already rocky, but this, I feel like, is going to make it even more complicated.
It's going
to.
It's going to. It's going to be like, we're just getting a small little taste of what life is going to be like for the next year or so. I don't even know. I don't want to put a prediction on stuff.
I wouldn't put a time frame on it, because I mean,
no,
the world a year from now might not even look like what it looks like now.
Yeah. It's just like this
again.
Yeah. Like you just look at the, like go into your local grocery store, honestly, walk around, just look at that. That right there should show you first that people are panicking, you know, and overbuying.
And even if there isn't an actual technical supply shortage right now, the shelves are shorted because people think there is. And they're, what you just said, they're overbuying. So it might not initially have been a crisis, but people are turning it into a crisis. It's
turning into the toilet paper crisis. it is.
Yes.
But it's affecting everything now. All the meat and the canned things and whatnot. And, you know, you and I firsthand have seen that, you know, all the shelves are bare, but what do they have a lot of in the store right now? And that's MREs.
Oh, look, there's a ton of MREs. Walmart's randomly carrying MRE buckets for $20. Started a couple months ago. Like,
it's so weird. I have a few of them now, and I'm happy that I have them, and we will get into what you guys should have. Definitely. I feel like it's really important that you prepare for stuff, you know, personally. That's not just because of what's going on right now, but it's a good thing to have anyway. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. Don't be ignorant.
Situations I feel prepared for. 1, nuclear war. 2, blackout. 3, zombie apocalypse. 4, hurricane. That's it. Like, you know, there's different levels, but those are all the scenarios I feel confident that we would, you know, be okay in. So.
Same. Well, me, not so much nuclear. I still have a couple more things that I need to get, but I do have some stuff. I definitely do.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Well, so the Olympics start the 4th, they end the 20th. My personal prediction now, again, whether you're into like Revelations and believing this is kind of like playing out with tribulation and all the end times that the Bible talks about, or you don't believe in anything and you just think people suck and like we're going to war because Nostradamus said it would happen. Or if you're into astrology and you are a fan of the Pluto's return theory, if you follow that, February 22nd is supposed to be Pluto's return, which, without diving too far in, is basically
we don't want
its way.
We don't want you guys thinking we're crazy because we're like in with the planet thing, but like there is some stuff that has happened around this that you really should know about. If you don't, like, you may not know.
Historically, empires have fallen when Pluto returns, and the USA's Pluto's return, which puts us at like 200 and 250 years or whatever, is going to be happening February 22nd. And historically, like empires have fallen
every time.
There's a great transition of
yeah
power or whatever. So that's why I've been thinking around like February 22nd is when like something's going to happen like US related, like maybe the invasion really takes off, you know, this week before the Olympics. I don't know, but this timeline of, you know, the end of January, the first 2 weeks of February, something in there. I think in the next 3 weeks is when we're going to see stuff start to escalate. And, you know, again, with China, I mean, China is hot and cold. Like they're talking about also an agreement that we shouldn't like, you know, use nuclear warfare, but then they're saying, oh, everyone needs to stop with the Cold War antics. But China is currently, they're currently putting warships and planes into Taiwan. So China's just openly right now starting an invasion into Taiwan. I don't know if they're even going to wait until after the Olympics or whatever. Like, and this was, you know, conspiracy, but now it's confirmed. Like, and that's why the US, we just sent a huge warship out into the South China Sea. So there is definitely a lot of stuff going on, like tension all over the world between different countries. And can the US realistically, logistically go to Ukraine, fight Russia, go to Taiwan, defend Taiwan? Like, do we have enough? Can we do that? I mean,
exactly.
And if we can, how does this escalate? Like, if Russia and China decide to team up and attack us at the same time, do we survive?
What are we supposed to do? Exactly.
Does the US even make it past that point? Because again, the US, I believe there are a lot of things that need to be worked on. We are an imperfect country. We're imperfect people.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm the first to say that. I have a lot of issues with government corruption, all that. But the US is a beacon of hope. And what we have here typically works. It's not perfect for everybody. People are trying to bring attention to, you know, social injustice issues. Like, I feel like as a people, we are evolving and trying to do better, but things work here. Other countries take little bits back to their countries. So I feel like, that being said, if you took the US out for some reason, if Russia did or China or both of them, who's the next beacon for democracy? Or would Russia, like if the US was out of the picture and Russia was successful, you don't think they'd go into Europe and say, look at our 6,000 nukes. Yeah. We're going to take you over. What are you going to do? I mean,
those nukes talk. They really do.
Right. Right. Again, but what we were saying, does Russia really want to like blow us off the face of the earth? I mean, they've made comments about reducing us to radioactive ash. Yeah. When they put out their new missile video, they dropped like 500 nukes on Central Florida for some reason, for whatever reason, probably because I live here, but for whatever reason, like,
they got to take you out. You know too much.
Yeah, I know too much. I'm going to lead the resistance. But anyways, I just, you know, really, if you think about how quickly and how aggressively things could escalate, nobody could stand up if these totalitarian regimes decide to move throughout the world. That's why globally this is so important. And that's why we've been saying, as much as like I have respect for Ukraine and people that are going to fight for Ukraine, it is much bigger than just Ukraine. There is
so much more going on behind the scenes that we may never know. We may never know why. Yeah. Hopefully we do find out why. I personally am very interested to know what is causing such a ruckus. Like, why are we fighting right now? I hope that we find out, but I feel like we're not going to. But it's just imperative that people understand that it's bigger than just this whole NATO Ukraine situation. There's other stuff going on.
Right. And I think another thing too that I want to touch on that you started to before, people say, oh, Putin's done this, Putin does this or whatever, and he's the little boy who cried wolf. The thing about it is like, okay, this is Putin's lifelong dream. It just is. He wants to get the USSR back together. He wants Russia to be the powerful, great Soviet Union again. And he has been building up. I think they made an estimate that by 2030, Russia was going to have doubled its nukes. That was when they were like already at like 5,000 or something. So let's just kind of like loosely recap basically everything we've discussed, and then kind of close out with any like last information. And then I think we're going to move on to a segment that explains what we would recommend if, you know, certain scenarios did take place, you know, how to stay safe or prepare for survival or just anything like that. So
Yeah.
all in all today, where we're at currently, it is, oh, go ahead.
It's January 24th. So
Yep.
that's what it is
3
today.
p.m. 3 p.m. Eastern time.
And
So,
stuff is coming out like every hour. I swear. We have information constantly coming out. I recommend that you guys follow us on our social media platforms, because if something crazy is to happen, we're going to update on that.
I would say follow us on probably Twitter, Instagram are going to be the two that we're going to probably post the most on. I think Twitter, you know, having retweets and stuff is going to have the most like constant stream of information. So if you're interested in that, I can get, or we'll put our Twitter link in the bio below.
So we would love to just like hop on podcast real quick and obviously put on another podcast, but the truth of the matter is it's just easier to update on these platforms such as Twitter. It takes a lot of work to sit down and schedule a time. We're on 2 different time zones and record and edit and all that. Just by the time that would come out, it would be too late probably. So definitely follow us.
And the information won't always be the most up to date. Like with any breaking news you'll find on those platforms. Any breaking news we discover here is not going to be out for like, you know, a couple days at least. So that's definitely important. Our
Twitter is very new, but we're going with it. We're just retweeting news information on there. It's just so much easier. So follow us on that. It's not Deep Down Podcast. Keep that in mind. It is a different handle because Deep Down Podcast is taken on Twitter by someone. So just keep that in mind. We're going to try to get that name, but it's probably not going to happen. Okay. So to recap, where did we leave off on?
Pretty much where we're at right now. The most like developing news that we'll be keeping an eye on is at 3 p.m. I believe it was Eastern time. So right now, Biden is meeting with the heads of other countries in NATO. We're not sure what he's going to be discussing. I will be retweeting whatever is said there. And depending on how, you know, everything plays out, we may try to record a second podcast this week or early next week to give an update with whatever information is given there. Because, you know, there's a chance that this does kind of continue to drag out and go into February, you know, which still gives us time to keep everybody updated and talk about any, you know, any updates that happen with the situation. So that's where we're at right now.
So we're now going to move into the second part of our segment on our podcast today. So if you are not interested in learning about bug out bag kind of stuff or preparedness or how to survive certain things like that, then you can just like go on. But thanks for listening to us talk about the situation. But now we're going to move on.
Do you have any questions?
Okay. Oh, no.
Too bad.
No, you're good.
If you have any questions or any like open discussion ideas that you want to talk about, tweet us, comment below, whatever. We are all ears. We'd love to listen and hear from you guys about it. So everybody who's leaving now, stay safe. Okay.
Yes.
If you don't want to listen to us tell you how to stay safe, just listen. Please just stay safe.
Stay safe. And also just keep in mind that mainstream media is not going to tell you right away if something is to happen.
Latest.
We have confirmed that ourselves. Like by just following this, like it's so delayed. Like just keep that in mind. Okay.
It really is.
It's really important.
I've never honestly realized it until now. Like truthfully.
Right.
Let's talk about the most likely things that could happen. I would say on a scale of least likely, I don't see Russian troops coming on to the homeland like a invasion and like Red Dawn style to try to take over. I don't think that would happen unless there was like a preceding event like a nuke or something.
There would have to be something big
US
happening.
Like falls.
Yeah, they're not just going to hop on over and just come get us. Like it's not that easy.
Right.
We have troops here, you know, so there would have to be something significant happening prior to lead up to that. So
okay. So let's say that the next least likely scenario would be this war really starts to escalate and it just kind of stays over in Ukraine, in like the European area. At that point, I would say expect to see, I don't know, just issues with probably gas and oil.
Yeah.
We get a lot, well, European countries, get their gas and stuff from Russia. They have like the Nord pipeline that they're working on and all that.
Yeah.
So I'd say like in that case, I don't know, maybe try to get some extra like gas.
I would
I'm trying to go
up.
through like scenarios like how this
Yeah.
could play out. Yeah.
And then we'll get into
you might see
stuff
gas prices
that you can
increase.
do. Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. I think gas prices definitely are going to increase regardless. I mean, they already do here in California, unfortunately for us.
Yeah.
But unless we use our own, which I don't know why we always depend on overseas gas, we get a lot of,
because we just don't have enough supply. So then I would say if we have a scenario where like China really does start to get involved, we need to be prepared again for more issues with like bigger supply chain disruptions in general, like if this starts to take off, because we get a lot of stuff from China, and there's already with COVID and everything going on, we're already having delays and people, being unable to drive trucks or unload boats.
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue we have right now with the supply chain disruption.
Yep.
So if we see war that way, I would say, again, in that case, I feel like stuff like MREs or, maybe having like your own, like some vegetables and stuff growing, maybe chickens, like just stuff like that, like just kind of preparing to make sure you have enough food. Would be the most helpful thing there. Moving upwards on the levels of situations, let's say Russia decides to do like a cyber attack on the US.
Yeah.
We can probably talk a little bit more about that because that's a more dire and direct situation to the US. So
so a blackout,
crank radio
for sure, definitely get that. Batteries, battery operated things. You got kids, you need one of those like little portable DVD players, I would say. I know that's not really necessary, but like personally I have one and it's awesome because it's battery operated and I can entertain my children. Blackouts happen a lot here where I live, so I'm fully prepared on stuff like that normally, like because I just deal with that on a yearly basis. So a generator, really important to power your house. I can't express that enough. Generator, gas for your generator. You can
get small generators too, like a big generator to power like multiple things is great, but even if you only get like a cheap little like $100 one to at least like power your refrigerator or alternate certain like items that are important, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, we have a huge generator and we have a small one, so the small one is definitely like more helpful sometimes. So
ours, we have one that is it's a few $100, like up there in the few $100. And it can power like our TV and fridge and like a fan or something at the same time. But the problem is, what sucks is if you're going to prepare for this stuff, please put money aside, because it does cost a lot. We're not going to lie to you here. This kind of stuff we've been building this stuff up for a long time. So it doesn't hurt the wallet right off the bat for us, but it's going to, if you're just now hearing this and you want to jump on this preparedness kind of train, just be prepared that it is expensive to do this kind of stuff. But
so I would say if you are somebody who doesn't really have like a ton of money, but you do want to stock up on some stuff, the basics are going to be water, food, shelter are always the three most important things to survival. For water, you want bottles of water or a way to get water, jugs of water, stock up on those. For food, canned goods, non-perishables. If you really want to go all out, you can get some MREs, but just a pantry full of canned goods should be good enough. A way to make fire, of course, so matches or lighters.
When it comes to canned things, think protein, vegetables, fruit. Have rice is a really good thing to have. Rice and noodles, I would say, because that stuff just needs water. It just needs water. Now water is debatable. Like, you really need water. Like, if something were to happen, think about the power going out, your water may not work. It just depends on how your water runs. Or if something really catastrophic were to happen, like a nuclear attack, you're not going to want to run those taps at all. at all. I don't
Yeah.
care if you have a filter, you're not going to want to use that water whatsoever because of radiation particles getting into the water plants, things like that. And it may not even work to begin with. But I personally go to Walmart and I stock up on those big gallon jugs of purified water. They're like $1 something for a gallon. And I just, every time I go to the store, I get like 1 or 2 if they have them. Lately, it's been pretty bare. So keep that in mind too. There's a lot of bare shelves in the stores, which we've already kind of covered with the supply chain and whatnot. Yeah, utensils, paper plates, collapsible cups, things like that. Like if you're in your house, you're pretty set on, dishes and whatnot, but you're not going to be washing dishes. Chances are if you have water issues. There's so much. It's so hard to just cover all the things that you could need.
Well, again, this is just basics. Like, so for a blackout situation, it would just kind of be about in the beginning, just kind of surviving until you get some sort of like message. So again, I think food, water, shelter, a crank radio so you can hear updates on what's going on. In that instance, the biggest thing you probably have to worry about is people starting to like loot, riot, go in places, because naturally that's just what happens when people start to panic. So I feel like a blackout situation, it's kind of similar like in California, when you guys have fires, or in Florida when we lose power after a hurricane. So, prep for those types of things. I think it could be likely that it happens. The last situation that I think is important to touch on would be nuclear events, because just who we're dealing with here, and the comments Russia has made in the past, I feel like it is important to put on the table that, it is. As much as we don't want to think about it, it's always impossible until it's not impossible. And it's honestly
hard to talk about. Like, I don't like to warn like my family and stuff about a nuclear attack because it makes me sick to think about it. Honestly, it really like,
I think right off the bat with it, to survive, you just have to, first of all, be lucky to even make it to the next step, because depending on where you're at, if you're next to, main targets, nuclear facilities, military bases, depending on what type of nukes there are. I mean, there's ones that, 100 kilotons that could get, a much smaller radius. And then you have Russia's nukes like Satan II that can take out the size of Texas. They have 15 of those. I mean, you could take out the whole US. Are they going to be that extreme? I don't know. Could they fire some sort of warning to
it's
a place?
Hard to say.
Possibly. We don't know.
Exactly. And we may never know. Honestly.
Yeah.
We're not trying to scare anybody here. I want to express that again. I've expressed it before, but it's just like, we don't want to scare you, but you should, I think people really can tell. Think about it. Just think about it. Like, cause what if this is to happen? You're going to want these things to help you. You're going to want these tips if you're not, and also I just want to touch on, if something were to happen, take now to do that research, because if the internet goes down or the power goes down, there's no way you're going to have time to do a quick little YouTube search on how to survive a nuclear attack, or how long does nuclear like radiation fallout last. Like, you're not going to have that kind of time. So take now to do it. I try to not be ignorant, and I try to think of every possible outcome of everything all the time. And every time that I think about a possible outcome of something happening and I realize that I don't have stuff to survive that, I go and I buy that kind of stuff. So that's why I have such a big supply of like bug out things, for that. And I'm not even prepared for a nuclear attack. I don't have a lot of items that I should have, such as masks, and filters and things like that. I don't have that kind of stuff. I wish I did right now. I hope it's not too late, but it's something to think about. If you have the money to buy those gas masks for that stuff, buy it. I really recommend it. Yeah. I know that you have, so. Yeah.
And, just putting this out there, we're trying to give people like a, out of the box, I guess, perspective, because again, it's only impossible until it's not. I mean, think about COVID. People thought, oh, it's not going to escalate that much. And it has stopped the world in its tracks.
Yeah.
So that already has tensions high and, all the fallout from that. So I think, like you said, it's a really good idea to just look up where your closest targets are. Just be aware. They're all, hypothetical, but look on your local maps, nuclear targets in the US, see where you are, figure out where's your best shelter. If you are up north and you have a basement, that's great. You want to find it's kind of like a tornado, innermost room. You don't want to be by windows. Usually there's a blast that precedes it that you can see that usually gives you enough time to take shelter. You don't want to be outside. You definitely don't want to be in a car because the initial blast can kind of blind you. Cars are going to be gridlocked, whatever. So you want to be in a shelter away from windows. And then after that happens, you want to seal up and you want to be ready to hunker down, usually for at least 2 days, say at least 48 hours. So if you are going to prepare, you think, you start hearing the news ramp up and, maybe me and Chelsea aren't even on here anymore talking because things have escalated so much. Like you hear oh, Russia's talking about nukes, this and that, or China, or North Korea, who knows? What you want to do is just have your stuff kind of prepared and ready by the room that you'd be bugging out in. And that's pretty much all you can do. From there, you just crank radio, listen for any advice. It's so scary to think about, but really imagine if it happened, most people would have no idea what to do. We don't know what to do.
We want to try to give you some ideas on what you could do. We do, but really, you really should do some research because it's not that many tips, honestly, for a nuclear attack. There's not that many tips. It's not like, okay, you got to run to your nearest blah, 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 and do this and then cover your nose. And it's not like that. It's very few tips. And this is if you survive, which sucks to even say that, but it's just something you can't be ignorant and just assume, you don't know where you're going to be at. You don't know if you're going to be at Walmart. You don't know if you're going to be at home. You don't know if you're going to be
it could be in the middle of the night.
It could be in the middle of the night while you're sleeping and you may not have any idea that it's happening. And
you could have no warning. You could have 30-minute warning. That's such
a window. It's a very small window. 30 minutes is the max from the time that they can notice it to the time it hits land. It's 30-minute window. That's not a very big window. So think about how far away your work is from home. If you're at work, think on a regular basis, think about where you would hide at work or hunker down in. Think about the most optimal place that you could be at work. If you're at a Walmart, I feel like that's a really good place to be, honestly, because it's a big building and it's got no windows and things like that. But you just got to think of all the possibilities. And
so there's a document, if you go on FEMA's website, they actually have updated their nuclear guidelines or nuclear preparedness guidelines. They just updated them around Christmas time.
We can put that in the comments of our YouTube video too. It's
link. A couple hundred pages. Yeah. I personally have it saved to my iPad. I've read through it already. Saved too. Yep. Which, okay, if we have power, that could be good. Having stuff on your iPad, you could download ebooks and stuff because, it takes up less space than having a full library or something. But it's just better to have knowledge beforehand. So if you think it's a possibility of a serious threat, I would just say, just go on Google, watch a couple YouTube videos, just get the basic idea. A lot of people probably don't know, but if you are outside or whatever, you're supposed to discard your clothing and put it in a bag. So there's
it attaches to fabrics. So there's so much that you could be just utilizing right now, don't wait till it happens to act because it's too late at that point. It is.
If we've learned anything from COVID, it's that if, you just need to prepare because even if it's not a main issue, for example, the toilet paper, people made it into an issue. So knowing how the general public and your fellow citizens react to any type of stressful event. I see it every year here. As soon as there's a hurricane coming, nobody wants to prep. They do tax-free for hurricane stuff. Nobody goes out and buys anything. And then the weekend of a hurricane, 2 days before, you can't find water anywhere because everybody panics. So let's all work together and, prepare just in case because
it's not hard. It's so effortless to just go and do a quick little Google search. That quick little Google search and that 8-minute video that you decide to watch could literally be a matter of life and death, honestly. So another little thing, like we've touched on gas masks. That's a really smart thing to get if you can afford it. They cost a pretty penny. They do. And that's because it's not something that is just purchased all the time. It's something that is purchased like one time in your lifetime, and that's that. You know what I mean? So it does cost a pretty penny. We do want to warn you. But Mira Safety is a good place to start, or you could go on Amazon for like adult masks and things like that. The only place that you can really find children's gas masks and filters for those is Mira Safety.
You want them to be CBRN certified, and Mira is like the only people that make that.
Yeah,
over here, anyways. So
yeah,
it's kind of limited.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of limited.
It's a lot of stuff is always on back order and out of stock. Keep that in mind. But in the event that you cannot get a gas mask and you know that something is about to happen and you are worried about the fallout, the particles, the radioactive, whatever, find your optimal place in your home or where you're at. And I would suggest getting a good like plastic sheet. I have ones for like painting, like the tarps that you would put on the ground, just a very durable, thick, heavy plastic sheet and duct tape and just duct tape off your windows and any kind of like opening, like a door, like underneath the doors, you want to have like nothing can come in. You want no drafts. So if you have like vents in your house, that's something you would want to close off.
Seal them
for
up.
sure. Seal everything up and just have everything in one spot. I have a basement that's also my tattoo shop, but it is also my bug out spot. So all of our bug out materials, our MREs, our water, our canned food, emergency supplies are in this area. So if something were to happen, I would just need to run down here, seal off my windows with plastic, seal off the door with plastic, and I've got everything I need for to hunker down for 48 hours. So I definitely recommend that.
The initial like influx of the radiation in the first, like, I think it's the first 36 hours is the most damaging. And of course they just fall out and particles and stuff, and there's different parts to different elements. But that initial amount, I believe it's X amount of more radiation than like a chemotherapy treatment. Like I want to believe that I know it's at least tenfold. So a lot of people in that case say if you are super exposed to it, it might be the easier route to like get in the initial blast zone, then try to deal with like the radiation after it. But not everybody's going to be that close to, these areas. So again, if, something happened, I mean, you could be in the middle of nowhere and be fine and not have any impact from it.
Yeah.
You could be right on like the cusp and, you need to prepare a little bit. So.
And the radiation diminishes significantly over time. So it's not like it's always going to be radioactive as soon as you walk outside years from after this blast happens, if it happens. It diminishes, and that's why we say hunker down for 48 hours. You can do your research on that. I think it's like 72 hours is probably like the most optimal, like stay inside.
Well, it depends where you are, how far you are from the initial blast, what type it is, what size it is. So there's a lot of variables, but that's a general rule of thumb is like, do not leave that area for 48 hours. Turn on your crank radio because, a lot of freaking power sources are going to be down too from that. It's going to take out a ton of stuff. So, wait for a message. Don't go out and try to talk to your neighbors and, hey, what the heck's going on? You know what I mean?
Don't let anybody in. If somebody's outside and it's the blast has happened, they're like banging on your door. You're bringing all that stuff in. Like it's so cold and it's so hard to talk about. I hate talking about this stuff because it's just so like, it's icky. It gives me a really icky feeling in my stomach. Like I'm having stomach issues right now just talking about it.
I know.
Like I hate it so much.
Well, hopefully, I mean, I don't think it can. Maybe there's a chance it de-escalates somehow.
I hope so. There's that chance. There is that chance, but
there's always hope.
So, it's so.
But if things do escalate and Russia does try to attack us, a blackout would be much better than nukes. We have to really, really, you know, hope, pray, whatever you believe in. We don't want nukes involved. So
Nobody does.
So
nobody does.
Yeah.
That would be catastrophic, and there would be a lot
Right.
of lives lost. A lot.
Right.
It's not like a small amount. It's like
It's
a
not just
ton.
like bombs going off. It's
It's bad, and it's over time too. It's not just like boom, those people are dead. No, it's like boom, those people are dead. You've got radiation. You're slowly dying, basically.
Right.
Which is so gross to even think about. But yeah, a cyber attack would be optimal. If we have to choose any kind of anything, that would be the thing. So have a plan. If
for any of the scenarios,
a cyber attack happens, you need a plan on what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to keep communication with your family? Like, do you guys have a like a mutual meetup,
a rendezvous point?
Yeah,
all
like
that stuff.
Like what? Like my parents live really close, so I would probably go there if there was a cyber attack and just kind of check on them and stuff. But it's just like I hate talking.
Well,
about
cyber
stuff.
attacks too. The other thing is air blasts and EMPs is another thing we didn't talk about, but that's another very likely scenario. If they send EMPs, you might not be able to drive anywhere either. So get a horse. I don't know.
Get a horse and a bunker.
Why did you just come home with a horse and a bunch of chickens? I don't know. Deep Down Podcast told me to. So
speaking of horses and chickens, like seeds for growing your own fruits and vegetables. Super good idea.
Starting over after the apocalypse. So all that being said, we've gone from pretty much A to Z today. I'm sure in the next couple of days there will be a ton more updates. Like we said, follow us on social media if you are, interested in what you've heard and you want to be aware and you want to stay in the know. Follow us on socials because we're going to be posting constantly to keep you guys updated. We just want everybody to be safe. We want everybody to be warned. And, hopefully this passes somehow and you guys look at us and you're like, it just ended up being a conspiracy. I don't think at this point it really looks like that could happen. Most people don't like to say I would love to be wrong, but I would love to be wrong about this. We would really love to be wrong, honestly.
I would love that. That would be awesome.
Yeah. This took a lot of effort to come together. I'm starting to get nauseous right now, so we're probably going to be cutting it here soon. But we did feel like it's really important to just get on here and talk to you guys. So hopefully everybody kind of heeds the warning and feels a little more knowledgeable on the topic or all the topics we discussed. From the situation going on to preparing and feeling like you have some sense of control or hope over whatever may happen. You guys, like I said, you can discuss with us. We were up for open discussions. Or
you can message us if you don't feel comfortable like posting a comment. You can email us deepdownpodcast@gmail.com. We'll get to you. We promise.
Right.
We
care about our listeners.
Yeah.
Right. That's why we do this.
And if you need pictures of what would you recommend? What kind of list? We can do that for you too. We don't care. We've got all those kind of things here because we're crazy.
Right.
So so we're here for you guys and we hope that you stay safe and stay in the know and stay prepared. Be prepared, not scared. But
be prepared, not scared, with horses and chickens on the shirt.
Horses and chickens.
That's it. Yep, because that makes sense.
Yes. And seeds.
And seeds. All right. Well, anyways, thank you guys for listening. We know today was kind of a heavy topic, but the humanity in us likes to try to keep things light. And, all you can do is stop fighting with your neighbors and your friends about COVID and political affiliations and who's wrong for this or that, or we should or shouldn't go to war. Stop fighting with people about it. And let's come together, because if a nuke was headed towards you, you're not going to be outside telling your neighbor, well, this is your fault because you voted for so-and-so. That's not what this is about. Let's find the humanity. Let's all come together, unify, stop being mean to each other, and just stay strong together
and listen,
because there's power in being together and trying to communicate and face something that's scary together.
Because we're all in this together. We are ultimately. Okay, so stay safe, guys. Peace out.